Uh, Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this final session of day 3 of Connect Karo. Today, for this session, we have uh, Shri D.S. Mishra, Secretary, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. I will do a more formal introduction to him before his keynote address. And we also have Adriana Lobo, who is the CEO of WRI Mexico and Colombia. And I'm Madhav Pai, and I lead the cities program at WRI India. This is what I'm going to show over the next 5 minutes is sort of some of the similarities that we see between urbanization in Latin America and India. And and then Adriana will present the recent trends that they are seeing in Latin America, and then of course Secretary will talk about what we are doing in India, which is running one of India's world's largest urbanization program. And the idea is to see how we can sort of create a dialogue or an exchange that goes going forward. We can learn from each other's experiences. When I say Latin America, I mean everything from Mexico down. So it's Latin America and the Caribbean and India. Just look at these two maps, right? And the numbers may not be exact because we're using these UN Habitat numbers and not official data from the countries. But today at 2020, Latin America is about 540 million urban and India is about 483 million urban. And if you start to look at the countries, countries in Latin America are very comparable to states in India. So if you look, here, Mexico, which is 128 million, compares very well to Maharashtra at 124 million. Or Brazil with 212 million is very close to the size of Uttar Pradesh as 230 million. Countries like Colombia, Argentina are more like Andhra Pradesh. Gujarat. So I think, and as we look at some of these experiences of these countries, we can also start to look at them in comparison to similar sized states. The other point I wanted to make, going back to this slide, so if you look at Maharashtra, which is comparable to Mexico, Maharashtra today has 3 cities over 2 million. Mumbai is the mega city, which engulfs also Navi Mumbai and Thane and others. And then you have Pune and Nagpur. Similarly, Mexico also has only 3 sort of cities that are about 2 million. So Mexico City includes, Puebla and Toluca, which are over 2 million, but it's part of the metropolitan region. Other than that, there is Guadalajara and Monterrey. So you can see, I think there is something for us to learn from how Latin America is urbanized and whether, how cities in India, the second and third tier cities in India will grow. Anyway, I think if we look at projections in another 10 years, India will be more urban than Latin America by our definitions. Actually, if we use Mexico's definition of urbanization, we are already between 55 and 60% urban. So again, but even then, I think we will. But I think one other thing to see is, as they go into 2030, we don't see very much growth in their sort of mega cities, but a lot of growth in their intermediate cities. Whereas in India's case, our mega cities will continue to grow. But you'll also see actually southern India is starting to behave like middle income countries. So Mexico will grow much more as a country than Maharashtra because, of per capita income levels and things like that. Again, I think important for us to almost compare our states to some of these countries in Latin America, partly because I think the socio-demographic issues, other things are also very similar. A couple other points that I will make and they will move. Typically when countries urbanize, there is that initial stage, then there is an accelerated stage, and there's a terminal stage. So in this initial stage, politics is much more centralized and rural. Then there is a transition phase. And, India, for example, today our urban representation of members of parliament is still 10 or, less than 20%, where urban population is 40%. And I think either through a new delimitation exercise or if India increases its MPs to 1,000, the proposals that have been around, we'll start to see much more urban representation in India's politics. Whereas a lot of the other countries in Latin America have all urban politics now. So it is the nationalization of urban politics. And I think that is another phenomena we'll start to see as we get into 2030. Here, just to show the S-curve in Brazil, this is how Brazil urbanized. A lot of accelerated urbanization in the 60s, 70s, and the 80s. And I think India is right there, 1990 to 2030, we will see this accelerated urbanization. And just to show on this, this shows the S-curve of urbanization, and it shows where countries will move from 2010 to 2030. So you see India will go from 30% urban to 40% urban, whereas Mexico, Brazil are all on this sort of part. And I think this 70% is a very crucial turning point when this sort of, urbanization of national politics happens. And I think that's what we saw in Mexico in Latin America in the 80s, and then in the 90s, all of these very strong mayors emerged in Latin America. And I mean, I think, and a lot of major legislation reforming local government happened. In India also, we have done the 73rd and the 74th amendment, but I think a lot of these reforms haven't happened yet. I think they happen once you get to this 70% urbanization mark. That is one of an important lesson from Latin America. And actually 3 things happened. So when they were able to do that politically, they were able to elect their own authority. Administratively, they were able to operate without much interference from the state or the central government. And financially, they were able to levy and collect their own resources. And Indian government also is doing a lot. MoHUA is doing a lot on empowering the financial, helping cities to do fiscal reforms. Anyway, in addition, several constitutions actually state that municipal decisions can only be overturned by courts and not by central or state governments. So with that, I mean, but the big challenge, even though the mayors are powerful in Latin America, they have struggled a lot with metropolitan planning. So this is Sao Paulo, where Adriana grew up. She's Brazilian citizen. Basically, they have 39 mayors, and these 39 mayors, don't necessarily coordinate, and there are lots of issues with metropolitan planning. I think in India also we have the opportunity actually to put metropolitan planning right in place. Just showing Ahmedabad, look at Ahmedabad was 3 million in 92, in 20 million it will be 6.5 million, and in 2041 it will be 13 million. So Ahmedabad is doubling every 20 years, and we have the opportunity to make Ahmedabad a compact connected city or a sprawling city. And I think this metropolitan scale planning becomes extremely important, and hopefully we can do it and do it differently than what Latin America did. And if you look at the top 10 largest cities in India, this is based on sort of satellite data, and you see that 66% of the growth is outside municipal limits. So we are seeing a lot of growth in outside the metropolitan areas. And again, we need to think about ways in which we can manage it better. Having said that, in India's urbanization, India is one of the world's largest ongoing urbanization programs. This government clearly sees urban development as an integral part of its transformation strategy as a country over the next 20 years. And of course, Secretary will talk a lot more in detail about it. So with that, I'm going to invite my colleague, Adriana Lobo. Adriana is the CEO of Mexico and Brazil. Adriana is a Brazilian national. She grew up in Brazil, was educated in Brazil, and has worked across Latin America in Panama, in Venezuela, in Chile, and really has a good sense of Latin America and its urbanization, because she's worked there in these years of rapid urbanization that happened in Latin America. So Adriana, if you can show us some of the new trends that are emerging in Latin America, and then we will go to Secretary to hear his address. So over to you, Adriana.
Good afternoon, good evening to all of you. Thank you very, very much for the invitation, Madhav. A pleasure to share with you, Mr. Secretary, and with all of you. We have been actually sharing a lot together with Madhav and the team. We have been as WRI-Ross Center sharing for the past maybe 15 years at least. And it's very interesting, and I think we have a lot of major lessons to learn together on how to develop better cities. So I will just share my screen with you. Here we go. Oh, here we are. Can you see it well?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Let me see now if I can move it. That's okay. So first thing is, this is a visual of Mexico City. As you can see, it's a city that has It's dense, but it's a very huge sprawl. The cities are in the front line of growing physical risks associated with climate change. So we have these huge cities, and now all those cities have been actually facing new risks that we hadn't seen before. We have floods, we have migration, there are new waves of immigration in the full continent that get that you can see our biggest power between the US and Mexico. But at the same time, I probably think this is one of our most significant issues. When we grew so fast, which was actually the 70s and the 80s mainly, the urban model triggered big inequalities. We were receiving huge numbers of people, and our infrastructure was not completely ready, or was not ready to receive the urbanization path so fast. So inequality is one of the issues we have been fighting along. The other issue that is very important is actually on how it's growing. In the last 30 years, Mexico population has doubled, but the area it occupies has grown sixfold. So the use of land is a big issue. It's a city that became less dense, and serving the city is much harder. And the structure that it's growing, that it's not really very coordinated from one plan, especially the road infrastructure is very important because it gives you the city shape. So something that was the full initial urbanization of Mexican cities was kind of well planned, and the major roads had a design. A lot was left for urban developers and how they think their own condominiums or their big land developments. And the structure of the network as a whole has not been easy to keep the cities connected in the areas of growth. So Mexico City's inequality duplicated in the last decade. You can see this is an area that really developed since I was in Mexico. As Mada said, I was born in Brazil. I came to Mexico some 28 years ago. And this area of the city was not existent. It's a full new development. And you can see the most high-ended buildings in the area, beautiful parks, but also on the side of what used to be a trash land. So you can see the very poor houses, and this inequality creates a lot of issues in terms of urban development, but a lot of social issues that are hard to deal with. So this, over the time, the city has a very clear spatial segregation between the east and the west. You can look at this map and you can see all green being the richest areas of the city, and all that is yellow or red being the poorest areas. And if you can see the south, what this means is that it is still rural or not developed. We have a lot of green area is still around the cities, usually related to high mountains, that the city is absolutely surrounded by high mountains. We have been implementing a lot of mass transit, but we have to say we still have a lot of issues in terms of how it is spread. The west part of the city has most of the infrastructure also for mobility, and the poorest area of the city also just trying to attend the issues that are there. But there has been the combination is very important to us. Is like we have about 300 kilometers of subway lines or metro lines, but also already 300 kilometers of BRT, but still 60% of the mobility of the city is on buses, you know, not really on any kind of very structured not so much infrastructure. So there are many paradigms in Latin America. We are now, you know, our first subway line was begun on 50 years ago. So we have aging infrastructure, a lot of urban inequity, new models of governance, new models of financial support are needed. because there was all this expansion. This usually comes with a lot of money, but as infrastructure ages, it's much harder to keep up with it. Many challenges in housing, especially housing that allows people to be close to the services of the city. Mobility, and now the new challenge is very much on resilience. We have grown this urban equity index, where we can see what is yellow and green in the middle of Mexico City. This is the Mexico City metropolitan area. And you can see, for example, that the highest income people have 26 more access, for example, to medical attendance than in terms of distance than the poorest people. And 11 times more access to job, and these numbers come across and across. So the distribution of infrastructure and access to services is a very important thing to be considered in the future. When we talk about climate change, it's very clear we have a very clear opportunity for mitigation on buildings, transport, and everything related to materials, construction materials, and waste. So if we want to make a more carbon neutral cities, those are the sectors we have to be looking at, and there is a lot to do here. And then looking at urban transformational change, we'd like to share 4 ideas. One is the real need, and this is a very big challenge of integrated strategic planning approaches. It's not being, we have a very sectorial approach, but we see the need to really value more the interdependency of each issue. We need to improve governance. As we grow, we have municipal governance, but the challenge is how to deal with this megalopolitan or this big metropolitan areas. Mexico City, 22 million, but Guadalajara, Monterrey, about 5 million each, with a lot of difficulty of integration. And how to grow coalitions and evidence to be able to take good decisions from a planning stage. Second thing is how to adopt natural capital at the core of urban plans. We have developed our cities in spite of nature for a long time, but this is actually charging us a very high price, with floods, with people being dislocated every year, as water, all the water cycles have been shown to be really in change. Our main cities are not on the coast, but anyway, this year is the first years that hurricanes were able to go from one side of Mexico, from the Atlantic to the Pacific. And we never had been crossed completely by a hurricane that comes from one side of the ocean to the other. So how we design water systems and biodiversities, nature is a very big thing, a very big help to be able to keep more resilient to these challenges. And a lot of look on big scale, on the planning in the big scale, but also a lot on the neighborhood action. We are really changing the model from separation of activities, motorized commute, pollution, congestion, to a more decentralized city, no motorized commute, economic development, based on a much better infrastructure from the roads. And I cannot say enough how much, building the right basis is important. Mexico City in the 70s had a very major effort to really get connections from the roads. And finally, the next one is an extensive public transport network. This is Bogota and how it's growing, based on, there is still only one metro line being built, but a very extensive network of buses with a very big transformation, not only on speed. If you can look at this one, that was the first Transmilenio lines and the first bus lines, and you can look at the design on your right side corner. This is being thought as really a place for buses and a lot more space for people to walk. People really want a city that's not only a go through. I mean, we need to go through, so there is a lot of systems to be able to pass the city, but not only that, but creating spaces for people to live, to enjoy, and this is a much better place to have more urban value. And those are the shared ideas. There is a lot more to share, but this is just a few ideas to start a conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Adriana, very much. I think if you can stop sharing, then that will be useful. Now, I would like to introduce Secretary to Government of India, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Sri Durga Shankar Mishra ji. He belongs to the 1984 batch of IAS from Uttar Pradesh. He has held various senior assignments in union and state governments, covering revenue administration, internal security, civil aviation, and urban development, and many other departments. He has also served as the Principal Secretary to the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh for over 2 years. He has a BTech in Electrical Engineering from IIT Kanpur and also holds an MBA in International Business from the University of Western Sydney, Australia, and a postgraduate diploma in Public Policy from the Institute of Social Science Studies in The Hague. He has keen interest in promoting good governance and has published various papers on the subjects related to good governance, public administration, and development administration in national, international journals and books. He has also represented union and state government at various national and international fora. He was also visiting faculty at the University of Guelph in Canada. So with you, Shri Mishra ji, please, if you can address the audience on India's urbanization strategy program, and yeah, thank you very much.
Very good evening to Hugh, Madhav, Adrina, and all those who have joined on this digital platform. Is my voice clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Let me first congratulate World Resource Center, WRI, on completion of 10 years working in our country. So this is a great work done. You have been associated with my ministry in a big way. I've been secretary in the ministry for the last 4 years. And there, whether it is the Global Housing Technology Challenge, whether it is documenting the activities of the Smart City Mission during the COVID pandemic, or it is the light of our urban planning through the local area plan or the town planning scheme, or various initiatives in urban transport, in other urban activities. Let me first thank WRI, who is organizing this workshop and given me opportunity to talk to you during this India-Latin America Urbanization Dialogue. Thank you, WRI. Your annual event of this is Connect Karo, and where you want me to speak on the India's urbanization strategy and program. I was keenly listening to Adriana. You are far ahead in terms of urbanization. You took urbanization long back, and that's why where you are. But the numbers which were given by Madhav, that as per those numbers, though the definitions are not the same, the definition used in the Latin America for urbanization and definition used in India, the definitions are not the same. So the numbers are not speaking the real story. But whatever definition we are using, as per those definition, in India, the total urban population projected to be in 2021 is close to 480 million. And urban population in Latin America is 540 million. It is very close to our total population. But the way we are going, I think the projections by 2030 is going to be India is going to cross 600 million, and so Latin America is going to be. But by 2050, that is another 3 decades from now, our population is going to cross around 880 million. So the total urban population today is going to be almost doubled by 2050 in the next 3 decades. The projections, the World Population Study, the projections are that 7 of our cities, by 2030 are going to be having the population more than 10 million. We already have 53 cities whose population is more than a million, but the number is going to grow around 87. So the number of cities, the size of the cities, as it was coming up in the Madhav's presentation, the city's size is going to grow. And that is, on one side, it's a huge opportunity. On the other side is a big challenge. India, after our independence in 1947, and when we embarked upon the planned development, we have been urbanized. We took pride in considering our country to be the rural country. In fact, at that point of time, more than 80% of the Indian population was living in the rural area. But today the story is different. We have around 35% population living in the urban area, and we are going to be majorly urban after 2050. Even our definition of the urban population is a very, very, this definition is not the way it is taken in this part of the world. With this in mind, I think there have been some progress. The government started thinking about doing something for the urban population post-80s. Some seriousness came in by 2000, early 2000, when a scheme called JNNURM, Jawaharlal Nehru Urban Renewal Mission, was launched. But whatever we were doing, it was mostly on an ad hoc basis. For the first time, a focus on urbanization has come after 2014, when the Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi came in power, and the government started thinking, if urbanization takes place, business as usual, the life is going to become extremely difficult in the urban areas. Because urbanization means, if it is a sprawl, the distances are going to be too long, and that will take a long time from moving from one part of the city to another city. The living in the slums, housing is going to be a major challenge. Sanitation services are going to be a major challenge. Adina was mentioning about the clean air, about the clean environment. That's a huge challenge with urbanization. So we need to have a clear strategy and a program to address this and use this growth in population, because this is a natural phenomenon. People from the rural areas are going to be migrated to the urban areas. They are going there for improving their quality of life. They are going there so that there are better opportunities in education, health, business, commerce, all other things. All aspects of life, they have better quality of life. So that one cannot stop. What we have to do, bring a better environment so that this population can contribute to the economy. The country under the Prime Minister Modi has kept a target of our Indian economy was around $3 trillion. This to be raised to $5 trillion by 2024 and raised to $10 trillion by 2030. There has been some setback because of the COVID-19, which is a pandemic, and it's a worldwide pandemic. It has taken toll across the globe. It has reduced the speed of the economic development across the globe, and so India is no exception. But India, with its conviction of Atmanirbhar Bharat, that is self-reliant India, now our economy is turning back and our growth is, the picture is much more positive. I come back to the urban phenomenon. From 2014 onwards, various focused mission programs were taken up. The first among them was Swachh Bharat Mission, that is Clean India Mission, a mission which will turn our urban areas absolutely clean. And the challenge was taken on 2nd October 2014, that when we celebrate the 150th anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi, who is considered father of the nation. We should get the country clean. And let me share with you, the impact is quite visible across the country. We have in this 6-7 years, we have added more than 8 million toilets in the individual households or in the public or in the community. We have got all our cities, the total number of cities in the country is almost like 4,700. 100% of our cities are open defecation free, which was not the case only 7 years back. We have got our total municipal waste, which runs in almost like 0.1 million tons per day. And that total, initially 2014, we were getting only 15% of our waste getting scientifically processed. Today, that number is more than 70%. And what the work which is going on in the next couple of years, we will have 100% of the municipal solid waste fully treated. We have used technology in a big way. Entrepreneurship through the Swachh Bharat mission. Lot of entrepreneurs have come up with lot of innovative solutions. So many startups helping country to become clean. And the result is, today we have got, almost like 65,000 toilets in the urban areas. They are available on the Google map. We conduct the cleanness survey, the largest cleanness survey in the world, consisting of nearly 450 million population, or rather 470 million population across the country. On a continuous basis, we grade our city, we rank our cities, and there is a healthy competition. People are waiting for their ranks, people are waiting for their position, so that they can make the city cleaner. We are using this survey as an important instrument. On the infrastructure front, there is an Atal mission for urban rejuvenation and transformation. To start with the selected cities whose population is more than 100,000. That number runs in around 500. In those cities, to provide tap of water and the sewer connections and green spaces in all these cities. So far, nearly 11 million, I'm talking 11 million new water tap connections have been given in these 500 cities. We are about to come to the saturation level in next couple of years. We have given nearly 8 million sewer connections. We have created STP of the size of nearly 1,300 MLD, and work on nearly 5,000 MLD STP is going on. We have added so many green spaces. All this work has been done under our Atal mission. More than that, there have been so many reforms. Reforms like improving the urban health of the financial health of our urban local bodies. The cities have gone for raising municipal bond. Their credit worthiness has been done. They are now raising resources from the different sources. Ease of doing construction permits, ease of doing business in construction permits. Our rank, the India's rank was 186 only 5 years back. Today, our global rank in the World Bank standing is 27. And I'm very confident the way reforms have been done, this rank is going to be among top 20 whenever the next result is going to come from the World Bank. So there have been so many reforms under the Atal mission for urban rejuvenation and transformation. Honorable Prime Minister took up a commitment that when we celebrate the 75th year of Indian independence, everybody must have a house. This commitment was taken in the year 2015, June 2015. A Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana was launched, and the numbers, when we made a preliminary estimate, the total requirement was nearly 10 million. And later, when we did the detailed survey, the total requirement came to 11.2 million. I'm very happy to share with you that we have already sanctioned 11.3 million houses. And out of that, nearly 9 million houses have been grounded for construction. We have already completed more than 5 million houses and delivered to the beneficiaries. The beauty of the scheme is, I mean, such a large scale housing scheme has never happened in any part of the world. And the beauty of the scheme is all these houses are in the name of the women. All these houses have got the toilet, electricity connection, gas connection, water connection. So they are like a full habitat, providing wings to these families so that they become part of the economy, urban economy. They can contribute to the economy. The children can have good education and they can contribute to the best of their potential. We have to realize this dream. There have been a large number of various reforms, whether it is fiscal, financial, regulatory, various kind of reforms have taken place. One example I can give you is the Global Housing Technology Challenge, where the WRI has been associated with us. We invited the whole world to come and participate in Construction Technology Challenge, and 54 new technologies came and participated in this challenge. We have selected 6 of them, and the construction is going on using those 6 in 6 different places in 6 different parts of the country. And these construction are resource efficient. They are quick kind of a construction. They are, I mean, disaster resistant. So the various good quality, and that's going to set the standard for our future real estate development. We have on the front of livelihood, there is a National Urban Livelihood Mission, and on the National Urban Livelihood Mission, large number of the population, those who are not skilled because they came from the rural areas to the urban areas, they have to be skilled so that they can become contributor to the economy. And such, I mean, almost like 3 million such youth have been trained. They have been employed through the various either self-employment, through the loan from the banks, or it is they have got employment, the regular employment. We have got nearly 6.5 million ladies, women converted into self-help groups. Our target is by the next year, when we do the 75th year of independence, we will have the 7.5 million women on the self-help groups. They will be contributing to the economy. They are, I mean, we have recently launched a brand name through the Sonchiraiya. I mean, that is available on our website in the public domain. Through the Sonchiraiya, they are selling their products, not only in India, even outside India, through e-commerce portals. In fact, their contribution, just to recall them, these women, during the COVID pandemic, when the first and second phase were there, they were associated in manufacturing more than 10 million face masks, almost 3 lakhs, that is something like 300,000 PP kits, more than 200,000 liters of sanitizer. So I mean, this force, which are trained, the women who are the part of the self-help group, they have contributed in a big deal in while we were dealing with COVID-19 challenges, whether it is awareness building or various other work. We have also launched a mission called the Swachh Bharat, a Smart City Mission. This is a Smart City Mission, cuts across all other missions, and it tries to integrate, putting the citizens in the core. So citizen first is the basic motto. Sustainability is the major focus, whether it is economic sustainability, environmental sustainability, and livability is our is another area of focus. So we improve the livability of the citizens. So this Smart City Mission, through the challenge process, helped initially by the Bloomberg Philanthropies, we have selected 100 cities across the country of different sizes. I mean, they all come through the challenge process. Across the country, every state has got at least one smart city. And these smart cities have started realizing we have got the integrated command and control centers 73 of them working. I think the balance 27 will be coming up in the next 1 year. We have got smart roads, smart electricity, smart water, smart sewer system, solar using the renewable energy system. We have done the urban planning, learning from the planning. So that we can make the best use of the space. And the best is the learning from here, whether it is education or health or road or electricity or whatever resources, all this learning now the country has embarked upon from the mission to the movement. Whatever learning is there from one city, the same learning can be translated to other cities, so that when they do the urban planning, they do a transit-oriented development planning. When they do the urban planning, they try to make the best use of that. It's a much greener and a better space. When they do the roads are smart, so that you don't have to cut the road all the time, but the road has got the duct for all the services. The road has got all this electricity, etc. There is nothing. It's a walkable, it's a cyclable road. All kinds of facilities are there. The smart cities have also started various things. They're learning from there. Making data is a very important thing. So there is the India Urban Data Exchange. We have taken upon the National Urban Digital Mission, so that all the facilities, everything, and all these things are happening across the country in a big way. We are focused on improving the walkability. The challenge called roads for the streets for people, or National Cycle Challenge. So cycle for challenge, or using various things. There's a climate smart cities. So various kinds of challenges, various kinds of activities have been taken up, so that we slowly through the smart cities, through the cities whose population is more than 500,000, like Transport for All, we try to use all kinds of modes of transport. We connect them through using the digital modes of digital mode, so that there is a seamless experience for the citizens to travel from one part of the city to another part of the city. So a smart city is a kind of an integrator. The learning from there are getting translated to the bigger cities, like 500,000 plus cities, then to all the municipal corporations, and then we go down to all other cities. So this is happening in a big way. Now I come to the urban transport. In the urban transport, in the last 7 years, when we started in 2014, we had around 240 kilometers of metro operating just in 5 cities. Today, we have 730 plus kilometers of metro operating in 18 cities. But more than that, we have got the metro under construction, 1,050 kilometers in 27 cities. So that makes it, say, the next 5 years, we will have a total network of almost like 1,800 kilometers. There are many other metros which are under planning. And we have gone beyond the metro. We have gone for the metro light, which is a notch below. The standards have been cut down so that the cost comes around 40%. Metro new, which we call it the tired metro, using the tire and the electricity. So this is going to improve the system. As far as citizens or the visitors are concerned, they get the same experience for the metro. And then the water metro for a city like Kochi, which has got water, or many other cities in country which are either on the sea coast or they've got the river or the canal system, they can use this water metro and have the same kind of experience of punctuality or good quality, timely movement, air condition. All these facilities are there. We have got in fact, in December 2020, just few months from earlier from here, Honorable Prime Minister launched 37 kilometers of Magenta line as a driverless metro. And we are now ripe for next 59 kilometers of the pink line, which is going to become driverless. And with this, the total world's network of the driverless metro will have 9% of that in the country. We are going for the National Common Mobility Card. Is a National Common Mobility Card has been developed by within the country as a Atmanirbhar Bharat, and we have now putting it in all the cities, slowly in all the cities, so that just using your debit card or a credit card, which is already, on the using the same standards as the National Common Mobility Card, you can travel across the country. So you don't have to carry card in different cities. We have got, we are getting our own, currently, the metro coaches, 4 different countries have come in the country, 2 from the outside, 2 within the country. The national companies, they have developed their capacity. Now we are having our own metro coaches. We are having various other systems. It's a part of the self-reliant India. We are also now pushing for our honorable finance minister in the last budget speech. She has mentioned about getting 18,000 buses. We want to add buses in our roads. We have BRT system in few cities. We want to add more buses just to improve the public transport, to give a better experience and cut down on the air pollution. So various things are going on in the country in the last 7 years. And what we are, what we are doing, this is trying to create a foundation for the future urbanization, because we know that whatever we do now, how we use this opportunity, this is going to translate into the action for the future. So when we have the new cities coming up, as we said, from the 480 it goes to 600 plus millions by 2030. When it goes to more than 880 millions by 2050, we would not like to have the cities facing congestion, bad quality of air, bad quality of water, or struggling for the various kind of the civic infrastructure. We would like our cities to provide a conducive environment where one can realize his dream, realize his aspirations, realize his or her, all the potential they have and contribute to the national economy. So this is the order. This is how the country is progressing as far as the urban front is concerned. But we have a lot to learn. I was closely seeing Adrina's presentation, whether it is urban transport, whether it is urban infrastructure. From the Latin America, we need to learn from you and see the challenges which you have faced in your organization. We don't face those. We can move up from there and we can create this kind of infrastructure for future. Our Prime Minister is focused on a new India. So we have a new urban India. The new urban India is an India which is going to provide opportunity to all. It is going to make sure there is no discrimination. It's an inclusive development and a development which gives wing for everybody to realize their dreams. The country's economy moves, the people's living condition improves, and there is an ease of living. In fact, we came up with for the first time in 2019, ease of living index. It is available on our website. One can see that. Now we have a municipal performance index. This year we have released municipal performance index as well as ease of living index. This is something a learning from different parts of the world. We are trying to create those models and try to bring some kind of a healthy competition among the cities, so that through this competition they can improve the quality of living in the cities. So I stop here, and if there is anything, this is a very, very important year for us. It's called Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. We are celebrating the 75th year of Indian independence, and this is a turning point for India's future development. The transformation which is taking place, that transformation is going to take a new shape. It's going to improve the quality of life of citizens. So I stop here. If there is anything you would like to know from me, otherwise I will drop here. Thank you. And thank you for giving this opportunity.
And thank you very, very much, Shri Mishra ji. I think this was for that very inspiring address. I think we are very, very honored that you were able to find time in your busy schedule and to come and to speak to us and to address the audience. I think your support inspires us to do more and support the ministry even more actively. I'll just one question, and then maybe I think we can close this session. So just wanted to know in terms of, you spoke about the large programs, but in terms of financing, from raising financing from some of the sort of international sources, also climb, what kind of models of financing are you thinking about, or whether it's for metro or other things? Are you thinking of any kind of pooled financing facilities or anything, or you are more or less, working with different bilateral and multilateral agencies independently? So I was just curious if you had any strategy for some of these sort of financing from the private sector or from pension funds that we can bring into India.
Thanks a lot, Madhav. It's a very good question. In fact, in the last 7 years, we have spent something to the tune of $180 billion in the urban sector. And all this money has come from different sources. Rightly mentioned, the bilateral and the multilaterals like the World Bank, ADB, NDB, AIIB. They have been contributing to our urban transport. The bilaterals like KFW, AFD, EIB, JICA, all these different bilaterals, they have been helping. The private sector has come in a big way. In our Smart City Mission program, Smart Cities Mission, nearly 24% is public-private partnership. So they are participating in a different format. Whether it is for BOT, or it could be just in operation, in different forms of the various forms of the public-private partnership that is there. We have allowed in our housing program, a program which has got to construct nearly more than 11 million of houses. There is a FDI is allowed, and is a 100% FDI is allowed, and a lot of companies from outside, they are participating in our housing program. You are aware of various banks, even the national banks, they are also participating through the different modes in our different programs. So we invite finances, technical cooperation, and any other modes of cooperation. There is a learning or the financial assistance. All those things are very much there, because what is required, you know that there was a McKinsey report in 2011-12, and their estimate was but to the tune of 50 lakhs crores, and 50 lakhs crore is like a to give you an estimate.
1.2 trillion dollars, right?
$1.2 trillion. Yes, because I have to convert it into the international this thing. So quickly you need to convert that. It's a huge order. It's a huge order. And this was an estimate in 2012. Today we are talking in 2021. So this number is going to grow. But the best part of it is now we have learned various things. For example, land value capture framework. The land value capture framework by ministry came up in the year 2015. And through that, now the cities have learned how they can capture the value of the land. Otherwise, they were doing the development and not getting anything out of it. We have also done the credit rating of the cities. And through the credit rating of cities, 469 cities were credit rated. Out of that, 131 were good for raising the funds, but 39 of them had A- and above. And out of them, already 10 of them have raised bonds to the tune of, you can convert it into the dollar. I can say it's more than 3,840 crores. 3,840 crores has been raised by these cities through the municipal bond. The cities are slowly gaining confidence. I'm aware our target is we will be getting nearly 50 cities raise bonds. When they raise bonds, that means they clean up their complete financial system. Recently, we have launched a new finance portal. It's called the City Finance Portal. The City Finance Portal, all the cities are now expected to place their financial status on this portal. They can learn from each other what they are doing, how they are doing. There is a lot of collaboration because, as you rightly mentioned, Latin America, all these countries are like our states. I mean, India offers the kind of variety where there is a lot of learning from one to another. For example, in the metro, we have formed now iMetros. And iMetro is a platform where the different metros can learn from each other any kind of thing which is going to bring down the cost, which is going to improve the experience of the citizens or the travelers, which is going to improve the quality of life. They will go for it. So there is a lot of consultation process that's also there, and we are very, very positively being aided and assisted by rest part of the world. We are all positive for this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your time once again. So with this, I'd like to thank you, Adriana, also. Thank you very much for joining us early in the morning from Mexico. And thank you again, Mr. Ji, for your time and for this inspiring address. And with that, we close today for Connect Karo. Please join us tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock for a new round of exciting sessions. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.